Hello everybody and welcome to Luxury. Today we're going to check out the most expensive compressor on Earth. We're going to check out the remake of the Fairchild 670 stereo tube compressor. This thing is a beauty and a beast. You need two people to carry it. It has more than 20 tubes. It's all point-to-point wired. It looks like a giant vintage guitar amp. And you only need $35,000 to $40,000 to afford it, right? Which is totally ridiculous. I get it. Totally ridiculous. On the other hand, who needs a car, right? Who needs a car? But if I get the opportunity to play around with a toy like this, I will. I love Fairchild compressors on my drum bus. So today I want to show you how I compress my drums using a Fairchild. I want to add compression and I want to add some analog goodness. You also sent me your files, you sent me your drums, so I'm also going to pick one of your drum files and compress it in this video. And even if you can't afford this, you can use any of the Fairchild plugins out there to try to do what I'm going to show you in this video. Time to add some sex appeal to our drums. Here we go. In case you are not familiar with the layout of a Fairchild compressor, let me quickly walk you through those four knobs we have for each channel. On the left here, this one can simply be ignored because this is only for the calibration. By the way, this thing needs half an hour, 30 minutes to warm up, and it needs to be calibrated as well, but only once. So the left and the right channels have the same level, but it needs half an hour until it's warmed up and until left and right levels are correct. So always power it up and wait half an hour. Now, we've got the input gain over here. This is basically like on an 1176 compressor. You can drive the compressor harder. The nice add-on is that the harder you drive it, the more it will go into saturation, into clipping, and that's how you add the analog goodness. Then we have a threshold knob for the left and the right channels like on any other compressor, which means you basically have two knobs to dial in the amount of compression you want. And then finally, we've got 6 different time constants. So you don't have a dedicated knob for the attack and the release. You can just switch between 6 presets. Now, to make this very simple, if you want to compress drums, you basically just need 1 or maybe 2. So 1 is the fastest, and then it just gets slower and slower, and for me, pretty much unusable for drums. And then when we come to 5 and 6, these are the automatic program-dependent modes. But to me, this doesn't really work on drums. It's nice on vocals, it's very gentle. The release time can be very, very slow, up to 20 seconds, but it's just not grabby enough for drums. Also, you get some kind of basic compression and then the needle typically hardly moves, which sounds very smooth and very gentle and natural, but not what we want for rock and roll drums. All right. As you might remember, I recently tracked an album with Krim, the drummer, for the band Harakiri for the Sky, and I'm mixing the album right now, and I did a quick bounce of the drums of one of the songs without any compression and without any reverb, and it sounds like this. So let's dial in some compression, maybe 3, 4, 5 dB, just to glue the drum bus together a little bit, give kick and snare a little bit more attack, and maybe bring up the room a little bit. Gentle, but nice. And what a nice and gentle compression. Let's give it a little more. That sounds really nice, don't you think? What is it, like 4 dB of compression, roughly? Nice attack added to the snare, brings up the room a little bit, sounds a little grabby in a nice way. Really, really lovely. Let's give it a little more. That's maybe a little too grabby, but you can hear that nice attack that the compressor adds. There's no bypass knob, by the way, so I have to go back all the way to show you how it sounds without the compression. And that is a nice basic setting. It adds some snap and attack to the snare, brings up the room a little bit, and glues things together. It gets even a little more snappy if you switch to setting number 2. Because of the longer release, it kind of chokes the snare a little more, so the initial attack is a little more prominent. Yeah, setting number 1 brings up the room a little more and sounds a little more dramatic. Setting 2 chokes the snare a little more but adds the maximum attack. So this would be a basic drum bus setting for me, just to glue things together a little bit. But this unit can do a lot more. So let's go a little crazy and let's just crank the input gain and drive this thing into saturation. And this is where things get really, really beautiful. Let's have a listen. Let's don't go too extreme for now, and let's find something that sounds super 70s. Drums with attitude, right? Nice analog saturation and slightly pumping compression, but still with a lot of attack. But you can also go beyond that and distort it even more. But then I would rather add this as a parallel compression. So let's do this. Let's fully crank the input gain. Let's fully drive the unit into saturation and see how that sounds. And now you can see it crapping out, especially on the toms and on the kicks. But there's a fix for this. So what about this? Let's just add an EQ and cut the lows. Nice and crunchy, right? And then you can re-record this distorted and smashed drum sound and blend it to your clean or dry drum bus. But before we listen to this, there's another way of doing this. As you can see, I have a second track here, and this is the drums without the kick drum. In that case, you don't even have to cut the low end that much. So by not sending the kick drum into the compression, you can drive the unit harder without getting crazy pumping effects or crazy farty distortion in the low end. Okay, since this is an analog unit, I have to bounce this in real time, but then we can have a listen to the results. And down here, you can see the two other tracks I've recorded. So this is the low cut version and this is the no snare version. Let's just blend this and see how it sounds. But first, let's go back to our gentle drum bus compression. Let's start with a no snare version. Wow. Oh, that's great on the toms, how that brings up the room. Just a touch of this and your drums come alive. Now let's have a listen to the version with the kick, but with a low cut. Actually sounds a little cleaner, but also very nice. The version without the kick sounds a little more dramatic. I think I was driving it a little harder. And that is great. It just sounds so much more like a drum kit, you know, even if it's a very extreme effect. And it's one of those moments where things sound great in the beginning, but then you add this and go like, how could I live without this? Because it just, I don't know, just turns a bunch of mics into a drum kit. Both very nice. So next time you mix drums, try this. Have a Fairchild in parallel, drive it really hard, drive it into saturation, drive it into distortion. Make sure that the low end doesn't get too farty and too extreme, either by cutting the lows on the way in or by maybe removing the kick from the compressed bus. Then you blend that in and you will see how your drum bus gets bigger, wider, more intense and gets a lot of attitude. Really cool. So this is fun, right? Pure analog fun. So let's move on. You have sent me a lot of drum tracks and I could only choose one of them. And I've chosen some drums from Sweden. Hejsan till Sverige. And these drums are from Jonas Jönsson. And wait a minute, he did write this. Hello, Mr. Kohle. Here's a scratch drum take from a few months ago that I recorded and played on for a local artist. Unfortunately, the heads on the toms are quite worn out, which you can definitely hear on the lower toms. Yeah, it sounds a little blah, 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 blah. But who knows, maybe the magic powers of the mighty Fairchild will make them sound great again. Of course. So that means if you buy a Fairchild, you never have to buy tom heads again. I'm just kidding. And then he goes on, I love smash drums, so smash them to hell. Cool. Yeah, that's what we're doing right now. So let's do the same thing with his drums. They sound like this. Let's do the double parallel thing, right? Let's go. Nice, full power. One thing I forgot to say, if you put a filter here and low cut your compressed bus, make sure to use a linear phase EQ, just to not, get in trouble with the phase down there. All right, this sounds great. Maybe a little less. No, he said he likes smash drums, so let's fucking smash them. Full power. This is all cranked, as you can see. How much gain reduction is this? almost up to 10. So this is fun. All right, let's bounce this. Yeah, 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 yo. Hooby doobo, hooby dooby doobo. Ha ha. So, Jonas, I will add some basic compression to your drums. So let's start with this. Just 3 dB max, and then we blend in the smashed version. The farty sounding toms are not gone, I'm sorry about that, but there's definitely a lot more attitude, don't you think? All right, I will bounce 2 files. Your main drums with the basic compression and then a smashed version, and you can blend them together and have fun with them. I hope that helps Jonas. Hälsningar från Tyskland. Ha det så bra. All right, in case you enjoyed this video, you don't have to get rid of your car or your kids or your wife or anything just to get this compressor, okay? If you do, it's not my fault, okay? Let's put it that way. You can, because compression is fun and compression is sexy, so it might compensate some of the other things for you or not. You decide, but don't blame me, okay? Anyway, I hope this was entertaining and that you try this at home with either the real thing or one of the plugins. I think some of the plugins even have a parallel mode and even have a side chain and even have like another knob where you can just crank the input a little harder and have more fun than with the hardware even. But this was the real deal. This was 20 plus tubes. The room, by the way, is extremely hot. I'm sweating. So that's another good point. You don't need a heating system in your house anymore. Don't buy this compressor if you live in Florida. But yeah, maybe Jonas in Scandinavia. Kanske du vill köpa den? That was my quick and dirty video with this compressor. It has to go now because I can't afford it. Please leave a comment, let me know how you like it, and let me know how many of the Fairchilds you're gonna buy. Thank you very much. I see you in hell, motherfuckers. Bye-bye.